Ivan Rankovic. I love how he liked me to introduce him, which is somebody who is turning medicine into art. And I'll let him explain a little bit more about that, because I think it's a beautiful way and a very powerful way to start our conversation here. Hi, Ivan, how are you?
Hello, Angelica. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I really respect your work. And the first time when we met, you said that you would like to be my life coach and my health coach. And I said that would be great, because if anyone should be my health coach, that for sure is you. So let me introduce myself a little bit. I don't like the titles. I'm just Ivan Rankovic. That's my first and my last name. I don't wish to introduce myself through the titles and distinguishments and something like that. And about the introduction, about the motto, turning medicine into art. It's something that we talked about, and I believe that the modern medicine must be a science, but also every science that wishes to take itself to the next level must be also an art, and must also integrate not only the horizontal level, but also the vertical plane. And only when uniting those two dimensions can we see the disease and have the right approach to the disease.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like I said, very powerful. And just backtracking a bit, I said that I needed to be a life coach when you told me that you went to bed too late, right? And
Yeah.
I don't want to give.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, sleep is really important. So I can help you with getting some sort of routine in place. No, I'm just joking here, but I think that it's really powerful, because as a patient, once upon a time, I feel that conventional medicine is very focused, as we were talking yesterday, about the focus on one organ or on one particular part of the body. And as a patient, I really experienced this whole experience, and how everything in my body was interconnected. And it wasn't something that a doctor could help me with, because it will help me with different parts of my body. It was up to me to really take charge of my health and really being connected to my body to see what was going on, especially during chemo, when your body's so out of whack and everything is so like out of balance. I really needed to kind of build this connection to all different parts of my body. And I think that if professionals could help us a little bit more as a whole being, would be so beneficial. And I think it's a 50-50 relationship. It's not only about the professionals. I think each person also needs to take responsibility of their own health and their own bodies. But I think that when you have just a focus on one organ, you can't really see the big picture.
Yes, that's true. And you now, when you are mentioning the whole picture paradigm, I mean, the cutting edge research now has come to the conclusion that epigenetics is nowadays even more important than genetics. When I say even more, of course, not in all instances, but undoubtedly, only 20, 30 years ago, we wouldn't give so much attention to epigenetics. But now we know that not only the genes are influencing us, and not only the genes can determine the pattern and the evolvement of the disease, but also we, by our habits. And when I say habits, I don't only think the routines daily on the physical side of the life, but also on the mental side can change the genes itself. So the connection is bidirectional. So genes are directing its effect to us, but also we can direct our effect. We have that opportunity to the genes itself. And also there's plenty of evidence to support that, and the whole part of the science now, which involves epigenetics, is really fascinating because the basic layers of the epigenetic influence on our body is sleep, as you mentioned, physical activity, mental activity, of course, your thoughts, meditation, mindfulness, everything about it. And also food.
Yes.
Food is very important.
Yeah.
So those will be some of the basic layers that we can use as epigenetic tools to influence our genes and to nurture our genes, because not all the genes are active. Only small percent of our genes are active. Much of our genes are dormant, are asleep, are not awakened. So what we wish to do is to push up the right genes and to push down the bad genes, the genes that are there only to cause harm and disease. So we have the power to do that, but the research is, I should say, just started, because when you're looking from the time perspective, 20, 30 years in science, that's nothing. That's just one blink of the eye.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about it, the genetics and epigenetics, I am a living proof of both of them. So my dad was diabetics. My both grandparents were diabetics, my grandfathers. So I have the gene of the diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And when I was pregnant with my second child, I had gestational diabetes. So I thought to myself, oh, well, it's a gene, so there's nothing I can do about it. Like, of course, I had to be on a very strict diet because the baby was inside my belly. And I needed to be very strict. But I was very lucky that after the baby came out, I came back to normal. But after that, I didn't take any responsibility. I just thought, oh, yeah, it's my genes, that's it, like there is nothing I can do about it. And it wasn't until I had a stage 3 bowel cancer diagnosis, which, by the way, it wasn't related to genes, and I was told it was only bad luck. Now, I know that, it wasn't bad luck. I literally turned on all of those genes. A lot was mental, a lot was emotional, and a lot of it was physical too. After my second pregnancy, between that and my diagnosis was about 4 years. I was still, not eating as healthily as I could. I wasn't exercising consistently. I wasn't, eating and sleeping and doing all of the things that you mentioned, meditating and looking after my stress and as well as I could. In actual fact, I wasn't doing anything. So, I am a living proof of like the genetics, if you like, and the epigenetics. And it's almost like when they give you that diagnosis, oh yeah, you have this because it's a genetic thing, you feel so powerless because you feel like, oh, that's in my genes, there's nothing I can do about it. But there is still so much you can do about it, right? Like I now know that, and I live through that, and I teach people that, because I still do have the genes. My grandfather's still, and my dad still passed me the same genes, but I know what I need to do every day not to get type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, because for our audience, because I know that your podcast is very popular and listened to, I just wish to break down for them the principles. How can they hack the bad genes or the bad hard hand table that they be given in the poker game of life?
I mean, can you explain as well a little bit what is epigenetics, just in case people don't know what it is?
Yeah, I'll be completely using a layman's term, because I believe in the sentence which once was told that if you cannot explain it simply, then you don't really know it. So epigenetics stems from the word epi, which means above, and genetics. So it means that something above the genes can also influence our body and the genes itself. It means basically that we, through our habits and daily routines and activities, our life can influence our health processes and also the genes, because those things are above the genes, epigenetics. They are way over above them, so to say, they have certain supremacy over the genes. So yeah, you have those genes, but the real question is, will those genes be active or not? So people have certain genes, but they never exert the effects of the genes and have certain diseases. So having the genes doesn't mean that you will get the disease. As you said, you had bowel cancer, but it had nothing to do with the genes. And you have the genes of the diabetes, but you never had diabetes. So it means having the genes for some disease isn't the same and shouldn't be regarded as an equation mark to having the disease. You're only having the genes for the disease. Will the disease occur or not? That depends on certain factors, and those factors can be either the genes are the genes active or not. You can have the genes, but genes are not active. They are pushed down. And also there are certain things that are happening beyond the genes. Genes are producing certain proteins, and certain proteins are then making regulation on certain processes in the body, which means even if your genes are active, there are also some other milestones, so to say, and some other watershed areas in the processes of disease, of the pathomechanics of the disease that cannot be triggered only by the genes. So if you have a gene and it is active, you also need certain proteins after the activity of the genes to be present and to be produced in order for the disease to happen. And that's why there are so many targets that we can have in the contemporary healthcare and medical profession.
I think this is so beautiful what you said, because that means that almost like our bodies gives us so many chances before we get to the disease, right? It's not only about having the gene. There's so many other, like you mentioned, chemical reactions that need to happen to lead us to that actual diagnosis. And I know for myself and working with people that the body keeps giving little signs, that things are not well. And it's all of those steps that you could do so much about it before you get to the disease, because the disease doesn't happen like that, right? Like I know for myself that the cancer was growing in my body for at least 20 years. And I can even pinpoint when it did. And when my kind of immune system got on top of it, when I was less stressed and in a different state in my life, and then when it kind of ramped up again. So I think it's, this connection with our bodies is so important, because the body doesn't lie. And everything that is happening inside will manifest in one way or another, like trying to scream for help before it's kind of too late.
Yes, there's so much we can do, and nature is really fascinating. And now the things you said resonated with me, that when we are speaking about genes, there are certain people. There was a study in the United Kingdom which investigated people in the areas which previously in the Middle Ages had plague. Black Death was rampant in the United Kingdom. In the 14th and in the 17th century, almost killed 1/3 of the population. It was devastating. But the good thing is that people who survived the Black Death and the plague had a gene that was nurtured by the nature and that was passed to their descendants. And that gene made impossible for the plague to infect their offsprings. So they found people in the cities and in the boroughs, in the towns, in the areas which were most struck by plague in the 17th and in the 14th century, their descendants. And they found that they had a good mutation on one gene, maybe two, doesn't matter really, that impedes and that handicaps the entrance of the bacteria, of the plague bacteria in our body. Those people cannot get infected with the plague. And something similarly was found with HIV. Some people don't have a receptor for the HIV virus to even get in the cell. That's a good mutation. So when we are speaking about mutations are not only harmful. We have so much mutations that kept humanity alive. And this is the best example I can give you with plague. And even now, there are many evidence-backed studies. They said some people cannot even be infected by HIV. Why? Because they have a mutation that disables the HIV to enter the cell, because it needs a certain receptor on the cell in the lymphocyte to enter. So when you don't have a receptor, you don't have a door. And the mutation basically means what? The architecture of that building is made without the door. So the virus cannot enter the building or the house.
That's incredible. So do they know what are the common facts with the people that don't have the receptor to get HIV? Have they gone further along to understand, what are the common facts with those people that don't have the receptor?
No, I don't know. I'm not that much in that field. I only know that from the epigenetical standpoint of view and from the genetical standpoint of the view, I just wish to put it like an example of how much things are going on that genetic level that can be completely misunderstood if you're not going in depth. So the notion and the concept that we can have a mutation that blocks the formation of the door, of the receptor, that means that if we look at our body as a building, and we have doors through which pathogens, viruses, and bacteria can enter, certain mutations can be exactly like the builders who are not giving the doors, who are not building the doors, so our building looks like a fortress and nothing can enter. I'm just speaking it in broad terms, in broad strokes, to let the audience know that so much fascinating things are going on that genetical level. And now I would like to talk something a little bit about the inflammation. Because I think that story underpins the genetics. And as we talked, many things can be done to hack the inflammation. And I say hack, I use it really in a really good sense, in the sense of the beneficial way for us to use it, because inflammation must be understood, and inflammation is not only and just harmful. Inflammation is what? Inflammation is the biological response of the tissue, of us, to certain stressors. to certain stressors, to the outside environment or to the inside environment that is stressing the tissue, that is causing some alteration or some harm. But without that biological response, the evolution could not be happening. So the point is that inflammation is important and is needed because it also makes us protected. And on the other way, it makes possible our development, our future development and our evolution to happen. But what is harmful, that's the exaggerated inflammation. Over-inflammation.
Chronic, like the chronic inflammation,
not only the chronic, but also the chronic, but also it can be acute, but it can be over-inflammation. Let's look at it like this way. We have a battlefield, and we have an army of our enemies that's approaching. Of course, we have to eliminate them. But it's better to have the weapons which will selectively eliminate our enemies and not cause harm to innocent bystanders. Like when the SWA team goes into the bank to rescue the bank workers from the bank robbers. Exactly the same thing. We want them to go in, to get the bad guys out, and to keep the good guys in, doing their job. So when we are having so that's the inflammation. It's a good thing. It's the police, it's the SWAT team, it's the special forces unit, etc. But when they are using too much of their force, of their weapon, of their firepower, they can also harm innocent bystanders and also the building itself, the money also, and everything what is in the bank, not only the bank robbers. That's the over-inflammation. So inflammation is something that is necessary, it's needed, both for our development and for our evolution processes. It's beneficial to restrain the harmful agents in our inner and outer environment, but also it can be harmful if it is over-exaggerated or exaggerated. And as you said, chronic. If it isn't like we are going in the bank to get the bad guys out and we are leaving the bank. No, we are staying in the bank and making all the hell got loose. So the thing is that we must manipulate the inflammation with the agents we have now, lifestyle modifications, and drugs on the other hand of the spectrum. So we have drugs on the one hand of the spectrum. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have lifestyle changes. We can manipulate inflammation so that every component of the inflammation is in tune. And we have something like an orchestra. Orchestra. Every component of the inflammation is working perfectly fine. No chronic inflammation. Nothing is exaggerated. No one is using more firepower than needed, and only the bad guys are being eliminated. And that means the normal balanced inflammation. All of the other ends of the spectrum, if we don't have enough of the inflammatory response, we can get diseases which are caused because we don't have enough defensive mechanisms. Infections. We can get infections. Also, we can have tumors. Tumors also can arise because there's a deficit in one part of the inflammation component. That's a cellular part, but for your audience, they should just keep in their heads the name NK. NK means natural killer cells. And really, that's the name of those cells, NK. In literature, they can type and look for the NK, natural killer cells. it means what it says. Those are cells which are naturally made to kill. They hunt down every malignant cell that they can find in our body and to eliminate it. So if we are underutilizing our inflammation and we don't have enough of it, so to say, we can have on the one end of the spectrum infections and tumors and oncological malignancies.
Yeah.
On the other end of the spectrum, we can have over-inflammation, too much of the inflammation, and we can go to the path of autoimmunity.
Yes.
Many autoimmune diseases and chronic inflammation. We now know that many neurodegenerative diseases, even atherosclerosis, now we have pretty much ample amount of evidence that even atherosclerosis has an inflammatory component.
Yes.
And many neurodegenerative diseases have their inflammatory component. Why? Because we have the inflammation which perpetuates itself,
for so long.
propagating. It literally doesn't stop. And that is a vicious cycle that then, as I said before, kills the innocent bystanders.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't need the both end of the spectrum.
Yeah. So inflammation, and thank you so much. That was a great explanation. I think that, and it's great that you explained that. We need inflammation, like I said, it's a response, it's a natural response as a defense to our organism. And for me, when I started reading about, nutrition and health and cancer, as soon as I read that, your immune system wasn't, strong enough to kill the cancer cells kind of thing, because of course we do have cancer cells, but if your immune system is working at balance, the immune system is killing those cells every day that are come up that are a bit weird, right? That are gone a bit rogue. But mine one wasn't. And of course the tumor starts growing little by little. And before you know, you've got a massive tumor there. And I realized that everything that I needed to do was to strengthen my immune system. That was kind of a big focus, and it still is in my mind, that, the immune system, like I said, they are your soldiers. They are your defense mechanisms. You want to nurture them. You want to really cultivate that so they can stay at a good balance. And I think that's really beautiful that you explain, that there is the positive is that, if you have a great working immune system, then, having a bit of inflammation is kind of part of life. It's, it's normal. But it's that these days, the lifestyle that we live in, and the foods and the lack of exercise and the amount of drugs people are taking for whatever reason, and I'm not saying that I'm against drugs, but that all is causing a lot of inflammation and imbalance in their bodies. And like I was saying, that the inflammation perpetuates for so long that it just can't anymore. It's just, there is inflammation everywhere. And it's really hard for the body to kind of get back into balance. But I really would love you to talk a little bit of the cutting edge research that's been going on around photobiomodulation, which I think it's, something really new. And like you mentioned, there is some research, but of course there is some more research that needs to be done. But I think that, it sounds like to me that it's a better path than taking chemical medication, if you know what I mean, because we're using different types of, but I'll let you explain how it works, and maybe one or a couple of research that you can quote so people can really understand how it works.
Yeah, well, there is so much that we can talk about here, but I'll really wish to clearly explain to the public, to use simple terms to explain them this complex matter in order for them to understand, to have the knowledge, and then to be able to live a more healthy and prosperous life than they're living, of course, now, because really knowledge is power. So food that we are taking can also be inflammatory.
Yeah.
every substance that we take in our mouth can be inflammatory, but as certain foods can be inflammatory, so certain foods can be anti-inflammatory. So the same analogy goes with the electromagnetic waves. There's a famous quote of Nikola Tesla, which was a famous scientist, who said that if we wish to understand the secrets of the universe, we should tend to think in terms of vibration and electromagnetic fields and waves. So everything is a wave. I'm not a physicist, and I'm just trying to grasp the concepts, not to really portray myself that I understand physics. I'm not a physicist. But if everything is a wave, light also is electromagnetic wave of certain frequency. So there are parts of the light of certain frequency, then I will say that only to be more precise and to be more clear and to simplify for the viewers, then can resonate with our cells. To be more exact, there are certain parts of the light, because of its frequency, because as we said, light is an electromagnetic wave. It's just a wave in the ocean. Same thing, we have a wave in the ocean. That's light is like a wave in the ocean. So certain frequency of that wave of light resonates with our cells. And when I say with our cells, with what? With one of the most important part of our cells, which is called the mitochondria. Mitochondria are basically the cells in the cells. So important and significant are those organelles that we tend to call them powerhouses of the cell. So the energy that is produced for life is produced in mitochondria. And where are the mitochondria? Mitochondria are almost in all of our cells. Almost in all of our cells. Mm-hmm. I recently read some published article that even says that 50% of all of our weight is the weight of the mitochondria, because all of the cells have the mitochondria. Mm-hmm. Even if that is not the case, that it is 50%, even if it was 30%, it's still enormous. So if mitochondria are the powerhouse, then let your viewers imagine that you have a powerhouse that needs what? To produce electricity.
Yeah.
Electricity. Human beings are run on electricity. Mm. People must know that nature has done it so well that in the processes in our body, we get energy through the molecule which is called ATP. But that molecule can only be made for us as humans to have energy via electricity, via certain electrons which are in the chain. They are connected in the chain in the mitochondria. So if mitochondria are powerhouses, and powerhouses produce electricity, and we need electricity, why? Because we have to have ATP. ATP is our biochemical energy. ATP is biochemical energy. To get the biochemical energy, we need electricity. Like you need electricity for your, I don't know, wash
machine.
To wash your to wash kitchen wash or something like that.
Yeah.
You can give me an example.
A washing machine. Yeah, and I think also it's important to highlight, and I think a lot of people don't know that, is that inside ourselves, we think that we are all mass. And when you talk about we are electricity, is that each of our cells have giving out an electromagnetic energy as well, right? And I think that's what it's hard to grasp that concept, that because we are physical, we think that we are just this solid mass, and each ourselves is only solid. And what you're saying is that, inside our bodies is not just all solid. We do have waves almost in each of our cells and in our whole
Yeah,
body, it is almost like if we plug ourselves in every night, but we're plugging ourselves with food or with exercise or water, whatever it is, that it's creating this electromagnetic field around
yeah,
us, of course, in each of our cells.
yeah. I'll get back to, you gave me a great trigger for me just to say this. There is a difference between the electromagnetic field of the malignant cell and the benign cell.
Yeah.
The electricity is different. And what that means? That means that what is the electromagnetic wave? By definition, the electromagnetic wave is when you have electrons that are moving, they're creating electromagnetic field. So there are differences in electromagnetic fields between the tissues of the organs that are healthy and the organs that are diseased. But to get back to my example and to clarify and conclude, in order for you to have your washing machine ready and able to perform its duty, you need electricity. So you need your mitochondria. In order for mitochondria to work, we must, take food, have oxygen, nutrients, circulation, everything. But it is found that certain frequencies of the light of the electromagnetic field can enhance the mitochondria to produce even more electricity. So it means, like, I don't know about the photobiomodulation, and you have powerhouses like I do, but you use light to put the light on your powerhouses, and hence you're getting from the same powerhouses, you have the same powerhouses as I. Number and quality are basically the same, but you're enhancing them, upgrading them with using the certain wave frequencies of the light. And that's the whole concept, the point of the photobiomodulation. Modulation. It means photo, light, biological systems, life systems that we are, and of course modulation to change something, to change something for the better. Now, the story is much more complex than this, but I just wanted the people to grasp how important is the light, and to make a paradigm shift to understand that it's an electromagnetic field, not only the structure, but the electromagnetic field that is also imprinted in the disease, and that we can affect it and change it.
Yeah. And I have interviewed so many people who had cancer, and I've worked with people who had cancer, and one common symptom before the cancer diagnosis, people think like, you must have had like some horrendous, like symptoms before the cancer diagnosis. And I would say a lot of people didn't have anything other than exhaustion, like really being exhausted. And you're saying like, no, they don't have any more power in their bodies, and and although they're still pushing it through, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you've got, breast cancer, or you've got bowel cancer, or you've got lung cancer. There wasn't anything like crazy going on other than the exhaustion, because, their bodies are kind of having less and less and less and less power. And I just wanted like to make this like more practical in people's minds. Like, can you quote like one of the research and exactly how, how are they doing this in an actual, like as a research paper or a research project, in how they're helping people with the photobiomodulation? And I know that there is a lot in relation to cancer as well, because, the frequency of the organ that is diseased is different than the others. Like, how is there anything that you can talk to us about it?
Yeah. Well, I'm always using evidence-backed science. I never tend to think about sensationalism. I always try to go in depth of the matter, to consider, to reconsider things. And also, I'm never thinking about any conspirational theories or something like that. I'm really always trying to keep my head cool and only dealing with the facts, but also taking the picture in the whole. So we don't have any evidence-based approaches that are approved by any society, national or international scientific society. We have many basic fundamental research. People can go for themselves and use any of the databases to search. Just use the keywords photobiomodulation, modulation, therapy, anything they can get their hands on. I can tell what I'm using in my life. So that's the best advice. What I think that helps me, I would recommend to others. I think that we must be exposed to light. We have to be exposed to sunlight. Of course, nothing must be exaggerated. But I think nowadays, people are more exaggerating for hiding themselves from the sunlight than going to the sunlight. I think that's a problem that we must talk about. Okay, too much of sunlight can do you harm, but we should also talk that not enough sunlight can be very harmful. So I'm using regular sunlight, nothing like some fancy machines or something like that, because you can find many things on the market. I tend to be 30 minutes on the sunlight.
And that's like going outside and being on the sun without any protection, right? Because I think that's a big thing. Like, we talked about
without any protection. Yeah, of course, 30 minutes of sunlight without any protection. I even Googled it. I went to the all known databases of published medical literature and also textbooks, and looked at Google Books, also looked at other search engines. I went to the StarPage search engine, DuckDuckGo, any search engine I can find, to also find the medical literature. I couldn't find any evidence that 30 minutes of exposing yourself, 30 minutes of your daytime to light is harmful. But 30 days, I found in some studies, can be of tremendous importance for boosting your immunity through the effect of temperature. We have talked about yesterday that temperature can be used as a physical agent to enhance your immunity. So that's why some people go to the saunas. Same effect can be done by using the cold temperature, but that's the whole different story, and we don't have time for that to elaborate. But I'm using 30 minutes of sunlight. What it means, either I'm taking a walk, or I'm doing some physical activity, or I'm going to the riverbank, or to the park, or I'm just on my terrace drinking coffee, and I'm drinking my coffee on the sunlight. And also there is enough evidence to support that you are feeling much more better when you are on the sideline during to the also release of the neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and some others that can also get you relaxed and get you in the better mood. So it's also a natural cognitive enhancer which nature gave us, and nature gave us daylight for the reason, and the reason for the daylight, for the sun, is for us to be in the sunlight, of course.
Yeah.
The cavemen in, I don't know, 100 and 200,000 years ago were
Yeah.
sleeping in the caves during the night, but the fire was always burning. And during the day, they are, of course, always outside
Yeah.
hunting and surviving. So 30 minutes of
So
30
with
minutes of
that,
sunlight I
like,
would recommend.
a lot of people that follow me, they are in Canada, in Europe, and in America, where the temperatures are very cold and the winters are very harsh. Like, I don't want to brag here, but I live in Australia, in the sunniest place, and I've kind of said to you that you should come and live here because it's sunny every day. But
Thank
what
you.
would you suggest to people who do have to spend 6 to 8 months of the year in, sometimes, I lived in England myself, in Belgium, and I know how difficult that can be, because you barely see the sun, and I know that too, that it affects your mood, and let alone your immune system and all the rest of it. But what would be a practical and easy thing for people to do in those winter months, when it's really kind of harsh, really, for them, that they can't really be out there in the sun?
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting, because there are two groups of people. First are the group of people that are indigenous to the areas which don't have enough sunlight
Uh-huh.
and that are sunlight deprived. The other group of people are the people who basically came there, but they came from the other habitats, from the
Yes.
habitats that they received enough of
Yeah.
sunlight.
Like me, like when from Brazil went to Europe, kind of thing, and it was like, this is freezing cold. I don't like it.
Yeah, yeah. But even the cold temperature can be beneficial. And that's a whole different story. But we have also evidence that certain cold temperatures and certain time frames being exposed to the cold temperatures can be beneficial to our immune system. Not only the warm temperatures, but also the low temperatures can do a similar effect. There is also one physiological effect that says that when you are exposing yourselves to cold temperatures, you're basically activating your fat cells, your brown fat cells, to burn faster. I will say that just to make it simple for the audience. It is not as simple as that, but I have to make them clear and to give them illustrations just to know the picture in their head. If you're exposing yourself to the cold temperatures, you are burning fat much more, and you can turn your brown fat cells, the fat cells that are the bad guys, to turn them into those, I should say, normal, if that can you say about the fat cells. And to address your question, what to do? Well, there's no straightforward answer. My answer would be the next answer. Nature has given us also the power of the reflection. The parts of the Earth which are on the northern hemisphere also have ice.
Oh yeah.
And ice can be looked as a mirror. So you live in Australia, and you are getting a better tan when you are in the sea, in the ocean. People always think they will get a better tan if they're on the beach. No, you will get a better tan if you are in the ocean or near the ocean. Why? Because it reflects.
Yes.
And what is the ice? Ice is water, only in the other aggregate state. So nature has given us ice as a mirror, as a natural occurring mirror, to harness the light it has and to provide us with the light that is necessary to sustain life. And also another thing, people who are domestic people who are indigenous to the areas and to the parts which are light deficient, or which I called, we talked in the introduction about the genes. They have a genetic pathway that is constituted and is congruent with the amount of light they are getting. So you know that we cannot say that people of the northern hemisphere, from the Scandinavia or from the Canada, have any propensity towards any illness due to the defects, just due to the defects or to the deficiency of the sunlight. They do tend to have more of the osteoporosis, more of the vitamin D deficiency, but also we must know that it's based on the fog. I mean, the thing why the sun and the sunlight is also deficient is not only because of the northern parts and northern areas. It is because of the industrialized parts, which are making many particles in the air that are reflecting the sunlight. The sunlight should go down to the earth, and ice would be something like a natural occurring mirror.
Yeah, so basically you're saying that, even if you lived in the cold parts in the northern hemisphere or in the southern hemisphere, if you go for a walk on a really cold day, if there's snow, whatever sunlight that is there is going to hit the snow and reflect back on you, and that is giving you some effects of the sunlight, because that's how nature created. So it's again, it's that pushing yourself to getting out of the door, putting all the coats on, and and really still go for a walk outside, so you can get exposed to some sunlight.
Yes, you can. Nobody can argue that if they're living, let's say, in Wisconsin or in Illinois, in United States of America, that they can't get any light. They can, of course, they can compare it to Australia, but they cannot say that they cannot get any light. There are days with sunlight. Maybe it's moderate, maybe it's cloudy, but they shouldn't then go for 30 minutes. They can go for 1 hour walking in the moderate sun and sunlight, and that's even better than not leaving a house entirely. Even you can live in Australia, but if you are in your house all the time, you have nothing. You have nothing beneficial that you are living in a country which is with so much amount of sunlight if you're not getting out.
I think it's all right, and I think it's using common sense. Of course, when people hear that, they straight away jump into like, oh my God, what about skin cancer here in Australia? Because we've got, the holes in the ozone and this and that. But we're not asking people to go out there at 12 o'clock in the morning. And I think that's what they, it's just using common sense. Like I walk my kids to school and I never wear sunscreen. Like it's 8 o'clock in the morning. It can be quite hot already, but there is a lot of people in Australia they are vitamin D deficient because they don't leave their house or they're too scared of the sun. And I believe that, as you mentioned, and it has been a practice since my cancer diagnosis to be outside, especially in the winter when we're not, so like on the beach and stuff like that, to be in the sunlight for at least 30 minutes a day. So I love that you kind of confirmed that, because you read all the research. So you're just confirming my practice here. And I think it's something so simple, but so powerful that people don't realize that there's so many things happening while they're doing that. Like it's not, it's not just a small thing. Like you were explaining everything that you explained behind, the scenes that is happening inside our bodies. When we just do something like that, it's very, very powerful.
Yeah. yeah, like we are having the pro-inflammatory food and we have anti-inflammatory food. So we should think about the concepts of pro-inflammatory electromagnetic waves and anti-inflammatory electromagnetic waves. What it means is the next. Are you surrounded with cables, with wires, with some powerhouses, or are you not? So everything for me must be in check and balances with anti-inflammatory and pro-inflammatory parts of the spectra, not to have either of them dominant, but to be in balance. Everything must be in balance, and in the balance we will find our optimal health. And you spoke about vitamin D, and we talked about the vitamin D, and I just wish to say to your audience that we're thinking about the vitamin D, just calling them vitamin, and it's a hormone. When we discovered vitamin D, we thought it was a vitamin, but now we know that it has so many effects.
Yes.
That it goes way above the name, way over the name of vitamin. It is a hormone, and the deficiency can be addressed in so many other ways, and one of them is balancing your exposure to the sunlight. And as you said, you shouldn't be in the 12 in the afternoon, in the noon, the 12 p.m. Out on the sun. It would be risky. You would burn your skin, and I mean, it's completely nonsense. But I don't know what's wrong with having 30 minutes of normal walk, stroll, or going to the beach, just 30 minutes to get your sunlight exposure for vitamin D and for everything else.
Yeah, that's your free vitamin given by nature. Just, it just takes you to getting yourself out of the house, which I think it's what we need if you compare that with taking a vitamin D pill, like our bodies can absorb that in a much better way because it comes from nature. It does its own thing as opposed to, having to take the supplement form, because it's a foreign kind of thing. And I'm not against supplements at all, but I am very cautious about it. And I think that if you can take that from nature, from the sun, it's a much better option for our bodies. But Dr. Ivan, thank you so much, for being here. We talked about maybe doing another one because we have so much to talk about, and maybe we can do one specifically on vitamin D. I think vitamin D it's a very, very good subject, and as you explained, there is so much into it. And I like to say that I'll leave Dr. Ivan's details, social media links, if anybody wants to ask him any questions. He's a very generous man, and he would answer your questions. He's very passionate about his mission, and I think it's a very, very beautiful mission. And I feel honored and blessed that you are here with me, sharing your teachings with my audience as well.
Well, thank you, Angelica. You just put a smile on my face when you said my social media, because I don't have any social media except for LinkedIn. Exactly. So the only social media you can find me is on LinkedIn. And also to say that I really will answer to everyone, that I don't have any private practice or some private clinic or something like that. I will answer to anybody and try my best to give answer and to help people without any, how should I say, financial or any kind of sort of backing, because I'm, as Angelica said, completely just devoted to sharing the knowledge and helping the people. So the the only social platform I have is the LinkedIn. And of course, Angelica, please tell me if people loved this podcast, if they have any questions.
Yes,
And
definitely.
did we resonate with people? Maybe people didn't like me. So please tell me if this video and this podcast went well and people liked it. Why not? If not, you will not be seeing me anymore.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. I'll add your details, your LinkedIn details, and thank you so much. And I'm sure I will see you very soon again.
Thank you very much, Angelica, and thanks to your audience. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.